Maria Eliane faced a grave situation. She was diagnosed with COVID-19 and, due to a very high fever, was rushed to the emergency room of a hospital. However, there were no available beds, so it was necessary to transfer her. Upon arriving at the other hospital, her condition was critical. Her lungs were 100% compromised, and she went straight to the ICU. During her hospitalization, she suffered a cardiac arrest, leading to a near-death experience, or NDE, and what she encountered on the other side, to her surprise, was an extension of what we have here on Earth, but much more vivid and light. However, what was revealed to her there surprised her even more. Hello, I'm Marcus, and it's a pleasure to welcome you here to Beyond the Life We Live. I hope you feel at home and absorb the lesson from the story we're about to tell. While you're here, please like and subscribe to the channel, as it is very important to us and helps us bring new and impactful stories to you. The story begins with Maria being taken to the emergency room after a night of intense fever that left her delirious when no medication could control the fever. A friend, who was living with her after also being diagnosed with COVID, took her to the hospital. The situation in the hospitals was critical. They were all crowded with no available beds. Eliane ended up in the emergency room hallway until a hospital was found to transfer her. She was transferred by ambulance, but she doesn't remember anything from that point onward. From then on, everything she recounts was told by those who accompanied her, including her daughter, who was present during her hospitalization. Very debilitated, according to her daughter, she expressed a great desire to see the sky. Her situation was quite serious, as the disease had affected not only her body, but also her mind, to the point of not understanding what was happening. The situation worsened with the lack of breath, and the persistent fever continued to be the main indicator of danger. Nothing could lower her temperature. When she was taken to the ICU, she was already being intubated due to the total lung compromise and hypertension. Although the pulmonary compromise was more severe, the situation with her heart also worsened, leading to a cardiac arrest. At this moment, the doctors worked intensely to try to reverse the condition. While she entered, her NDE began. In this state, she suddenly found herself outside her body, and quickly, a very white light appeared before her. She looked at this light and realized she was being lifted upwards amid clouds, as if she were flying, but curiously, she felt no fear. On the contrary, she felt more alive than ever. Then people appeared, and she couldn't identify them, as they were extremely luminous. At this moment, Maria Eliane, without hearing her own voice, thought,
"Did I die?"
The answer came also in thought.
You haven't died, but you need to come with us.
As they advanced, she began to see the dimension of nature around her. Soon, night fell, and the sky, extremely clear, revealed stars in an impressive way. Then the figure told her they needed to take her to a city, a place where she spent a large part of her childhood. Curiously, a friend of hers, who was also hospitalized with COVID in the same hospital, had passed away and had also been taken there. She wondered if there was any connection between this fact and why she was being guided there, perhaps due to the strong friendship between them. During the transition, she reflected on life, how the afterlife was surprising, and remembered that she had always been afraid of death, especially after losing her mother, a brother, and finally her father. And with what was happening at that moment, she stopped fearing death. However, when questioning if she had died, even though everything indicated she had, the answer was clear: she had not died. Upon arriving at the location, she recognized the road, as she had traveled there many times, and the calm of the journey was interrupted by a sense of turbulence. The sky, once so clear, began to transform into dark spots, shadows emerging around. Maria Eliane began to feel fear in addition to difficulty breathing. One of the figures accompanying her asked her to stay calm, assuring her that this turbulent phase would pass and that she would be safe. Trusting the words, she began to calm down, little by little. Noises and what seemed to be creatures made her panic, and she started screaming for help, invoking the protection of God and Saint Michael the Archangel, whom she was devoted to. At the height of her despair, one of the figures held her in their arms, and together they moved away from the turbulent place. As they left the situation, they went to a place that resembled a house. It was then that they told her she needed to stay there, but assured her she would be well taken care of. Soon after, two women appeared who resembled nuns, wearing clothing that resembled such attire. The women were not kind, they showed some aggression. Eliane, curious about that place, began to hear voices. She clearly heard familiar names, such as her daughter Mariana and other important people to her.
Maria, 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 Maria.
Despite hearing the names, she saw no one and began to scream, trying to alert that she was there, as if she felt they were looking for her. When Eliane tried to ask what was happening, the woman interrupted her, asking her not to ask questions, saying she would take care of everything. The presence of this woman felt like that of someone dear. Then a strong memory of her paternal grandmother came to mind, and she felt a soft laugh, as if her grandmother were confirming her thoughts. Soon the figures Eliane referred to as nurses returned, saying they had come to take her. Before leaving, the woman who had cared for her, whom she associated with her grandmother, approached, kissed her, and called her La Niña, the nickname her grandparents and parents used for her in childhood. Despite wanting to stay longer with the figure who reminded her of her grandmother, she was taken to another place. There, time seemed to have no importance. Days and nights passed, but Eliane never felt hunger or thirst. She noticed cities in the distance until, after some time, they were taken to a beach. Upon stepping on the sand, a feeling of happiness took over. When she entered the water, something curious happened. She did not get wet. She felt the pleasure of the sea, but her body and clothes remained dry. She dove, picked up sand from the bottom of the sea, but when she surfaced and opened her hand, there was nothing. Suddenly, a feeling of malaise began to arise, and suddenly, she found herself immediately transported back to the hospital. They had just extubated her, indicating that something significant had happened. When the doctor realized the urgent need to re-intubate, the situation in the room became tense. Eliane, filled with distress, approached the doctor almost desperately, pleading with him to place the tube as soon as possible. After some time, he finally gave in and performed the procedure. When the tube was placed, the machine started working, bringing a sense of relief. The doctor immediately called for help, and soon the room was filled with nurses and doctors who began to take the necessary steps, checking her blood pressure and vital signs. Eliane wanted to speak, ask what was happening, but the beings who had accompanied her previously did not allow it. Without saying anything, they took her to another place. Upon arriving, they found themselves sitting in a field surrounded by flowers of various colors, a place of immense beauty and peace. At that moment, it was told to Eliane that the one who had cared for her most of the time was her grandmother, confirming the deep connection she felt from the beginning of this experience. Then, Eliane inquired about her mother and her deceased grandmother. She asked why her mother wasn't there and was informed that her mother was taking care of the other children. During the 35 days in a coma and the 51 days in the hospital, she felt her daughter was a constant presence. While walking, the beings accompanying her warned that she would have some health problems in the future and that she would need to take good care of herself. When Eliane asked if she had died, they responded directly,
No, you haven't died, you're alive.
Whenever she tried to ask who they were, they changed the subject, avoiding giving answers. Then one of them said it was time for her to return. For her, leaving that place was sad, as in addition to the crystal-clear blue sky and the magnificent surroundings where the plants along the path bloomed exuberantly, she felt that she could live in peace forever there, as did others from that place. Suddenly, she found herself back in the hospital, where they had already removed the intubation tube and placed a device. Still sedated from the medication, she woke and fell asleep repeatedly. The mental after-effects were significant, to the point that she could not remember basic details, such as where she lived or if she had a car, only remembering her daughter. After waking from the coma and already in the hospital apartment, an ICU nurse visited her, saying she had survived COVID because she had a mission to fulfill, one she would still discover. Eliane reflected on this experience and shared that after all she went through, she no longer fears death, as she believes that death is merely a passage to the other side of life. For her, we are here to evolve, learn, teach, and care for one another, despite wars, violence, and inequalities. In the end, love is greater than everything, and that is what we must believe in, as well as trust that God expects the best from us. After her experience, she deeply believes that everyone has a mission to fulfill in life, and that love and faith are essential to moving forward, regardless of the adversities we face.